Wolfpack, what's going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com, we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 11 waiver wire. So pumped to dive into this one. We actually have a ton of intriguing names this week, more so than we've had in probably the last 5 weeks combined. Huge action to get you ready for that stretch run. Been doing a lot of strength and schedule analysis that will make sure to work in here as well for those of you who are in win now situations versus fantasy playoffs. Who might I want to stash? Who could be intriguing? We'll dive into all of that. Thank you so much for joining us on your Tuesday night. So pumped to also announce we're going to be doing a trade deadline show today as well. So if you're intrigued by that, you want to know who to buy or sell high after this show, 8 p.m., stick with us for our second show, Transaction Tuesday Bonanza, a spectacular today. Let's get it, Wolfpack. Thanks again for coming in, joining here. If you enjoy it, please do consider hitting that thumbs up button, helping us get out to more people as we go. But as I said, we have so many intriguing names this week, so let's dive right in. Some genuine potential league winners I think you can find. Starting at the top, Rachaad White, 45% rostered. I think he's worth nearly all of your FAAB, maybe all of it. The only reason not to bid every single cent is the fact that Lenny Fournette is expected back pretty soon, maybe as early as after their Week 11 bye. If we knew we had at least 2 to 3 starts, game over, you bid it all on Rachaad White. But even if not, it does sound like Rachaad White has taken over as the starter here, and it's now going to become a hot hand situation after he had a monster day on Sunday over there in Germany. 22 carries, 105 yards, looking damn good. That stiff arm was Marshawn Lynch-esque. The way he chucked that Seahawk out of the club was beautiful to see. When he finally got the opportunity, he thrived. Now, a lot of the opportunity did come because Fournette went down a hip injury. He had ice like on his stomach, his hip. So again, expected back pretty quickly, Fournette, but that looked pretty bad. So we will see. He has missed time, Lenny, in every single season, 3+ games in 4 of 5 seasons. So we know that opportunity is likely to present itself, even if it is not quite already. And, playoff Lenny, they're going to want to rest their horse as well. So we saw Rachaad White take over 48 of the 75 snaps. Over 50% went to him, 22 to Fournette, 22 carries for White compared to 14 for Fournette. And again, yes, injury 100% had a big factor in that, but he did see Rachaad White 20 of 25 snaps after Fournette's injury. It became a one-man show. Keyshawn Vaughn came and gave him a breather for a few snaps, but this was the Rachaad White show. So if Fournette misses time, bam, you've got a locked-in low-end running back 1, elite running back 2. And even if not, it does sound like, according to The Athletic, Greg Auman reporting, he will retain the starting job even when Lenny Fournette returns. The touches will depend on who is producing, how they are playing, but it sounds like Rachaad White has officially taken over a huge slice of this backfield. He's been on this list every single week, including a number 1 spot just a few weeks ago. So hopefully you already had this guy, and certainly when he was announced as the starter on Sunday morning, hopefully you went out and got him. But if not, and he's still out there in your league, this is it. You got to go do it now. Rachaad White, a favorite of this show, a guy we've talked about so much. The time is now, folks. Go and get him. Bid what it takes, even if that's the rest of your FAAB. Again, I think 50 to 70% should get the job done. But even if not, number 1 claim, all that stuff, go out and spend it. Of course, keep getting those questions on in, Wolfpack. We'll answer them all at the end of the show. Moving on to number 2, Kadarius Toney, out there in roughly half of your leagues. A lot of people dropped him after a disappointing when he only played 9 snaps his debut week with the Chiefs. We saw that workload get bumped up a little bit, not quite to the level we'd like to see, 28 snaps, about a 30% snap share here. But ultimately, he produced huge 17 half PPR fantasy points, even on just that limited workload for Kadarius Toney. Saw 5 targets, hauled in 4 for 57 and a touchdown, maybe the most wide open touchdown you'll ever see. He even just hopped in like a little asshole on one leg to just emphasize how open he was. You'll love to see it. That's why we're so excited about seeing Kadarius Toney in an Andy Reid offense where he's being schemed by far the best he ever will be. Perfect usage. You can just tell Andy Reid is foaming at the mouth to get this guy even more involved. In my opinion, the most talented wide receiver on this team, including Juju, who got hurt and is likely to miss at least this next week, maybe even more. It looked like a bad head injury for a player who's had those in his past. So I think Toney's role is only going to continue to get elevated. I think he is far and ahead of Valdez-Scantling and Justin Watson, who did take over as the lead snap guy. But again, I think it's part more so of Tony getting more acclimated to the offense, getting used to his team. The fact that he could dominate as much as he did with only a third of the snaps just tells you how special this talent is. Was one of the most elite rookie seasons we've seen, and very limited, I know, very small sample size, but still, in terms of yards per route run, in terms of target share per route run, he was popping in so many of those most predictive metrics. It is so great to see this talent succeed. I mean, if you saw some of those contested catches he was making, whether you're an eyeball guy, an advanced analytics guy, he popped in every which way in his limited usage this week, and I think that role only continues to elevate, even if Hardman does return. To me, Tony has the upside to take over as the wide receiver one in this offense as they forge that relationship, him and Mahomes. I love this player. If he is somehow lingering on your waiver wire, I think 35% or so, go get him. Make sure you get him, especially if you have a wide receiver need. Huge fan, and starting as early as this week against the Chargers, again, with no Juju, definitely a huge viable threat. Other than him, though, at wide receiver, much more likely to be out there in your league, over 30 half PPR fantasy points for Christian Watson, 11% rostered. The man hauled in 4 of his 8 targets for 107 yards, and 4 of those catches, 3 went for touchdowns. A monster day for Christian Watson. We knew he had the talent. Everybody did. Size, speed, demon, like 99th percentile level athleticism. Definitely had some boneheaded drops coming into the season. Didn't, fully have Aaron Rodgers' trust. And we did see that yet again during this game. A couple really costly bad drops, misjudged on an interception from Aaron Rodgers. Definitely a few plays that are like, is he going to get yanked? Is Aaron Rodgers going to completely freeze him out? But no, they kept him in. Only Allen Lazard played more snaps, 63 snaps for Lazard compared to 54 for Watson. So they continued to go back to him, and he continued to pay them for doing so. 7, 38, and 59-yard touchdowns of his 8 targets. Over half of them went for 20-plus yards. This guy is a downfield maven. He is looking like, with Romeo Doubs and Randall Cobb out, the clear-cut number 2, was definitely more involved than Sammy Watkins, Samari Toure. It was the Christian Watson show, and all he did, other than, again, those ugly drops, I get it. It was gross, but still, he performed marvelously. He is by far the most athletic freak on this team. They have one of the softest schedules coming up down the stretch, the second most points for quarterbacks allowed down the stretch, and a lot of that is easy to wide receiver. He's been targeted on 25% of his routes. That's behind only Chris Olave and Drake London among the rookies. So I think this just continues to get bumped up. We see it every year. A stretch run receiver, typically a rookie, gets his role elevated and goes crazy. We know Watson has the quarterback talent. We know he has the individual athleticism to be that guy for 2022. Well worth a 25, 35% bid to get this guy on your team and see what he does during your stretch runs. At number 4 for my waiver wire pickup of the week, we got to talk about the Chiefs backfield, because it went from a 3-headed disgusting nightmare to only 2 mouths, and that is enormous. Anytime you can get a piece of a Pat Mahomes offense, whether it's the backfield or a pass catching option, you want to take it. And at the top of that for me is Isiah Pacheco. Only 25% roster, and I think he's worth about 20% FAAB, maybe even 25% if you're running back needy. 16 carries. Saw 82 yards on that. Some really nice runs. He's definitely had a few plays where it's like, does he got the vision? Like, you see these cutback lanes. I thought this was his best performance as a pro, though. It seemed like he was hitting the hole much harder, much clearer vision in this one. And they have a dynamite schedule for running backs, 5th easiest over the rest of the season. Fantasy playoffs, the 2nd easiest schedule for running backs. And that's huge, because if they're bleeding out the clock, that's where Pacheco does his damage. Edwards-Helaire has definitely been seeing a decrease in snaps. This was a season low for him. Ultimately, he played, 16% of the snaps, saw 0 touches, 2 targets, didn't catch either of them. So definitely became a McKinnon-Pacheco-led backfield. Seems like the CEH experiment has ended here in Kansas City. So I definitely could see Pacheco being a big factor in this team. Again, with an easy schedule, bleeding the clock late, has that big body. The thing is we saw CEH get all of his snaps in the red zone. If that does continue to happen, it does cap the ceiling for Pacheco, but that's kind of the last feather. If he ends up taking over that role too, the red zone snaps, this guy could go to the moon. So we haven't seen that blow up yet. After 3 straight starts, though, continuing the climb, I think 16 carries is illuminating. This guy has some real breakout potential. The athleticism comparison, Damian Williams, we saw how he did in this offense. So I am a big fan here of Pacheco in his stretch run upside. I did want to mention Jerick McKinnon, who has routinely led this team in snaps. Why don't we want the guy that's on the field the most, the guy catching the most balls? He did have 8 targets, 6 catches, 56 yards through the air from Mahomes. Certainly a viable play. There's a ceiling is just feels pretty damn capped with McKinnon. He has not had a single double-digit fantasy point performance on the year. He's had plenty of 8.8, 7.4, 8.2, like nice, serviceable, okay numbers. But to me, the ceiling is just so capped despite him being the snap leader. He's just not all that talented at this point. He's safe, he's viable, but he's a floor stab. If you're desperate for like a 8-point flex guy, he has that potential. But to me, Pacheco is by far the higher upside option here that maybe even takes over that role as a nice pass catcher himself. So definitely on the upswing. Big fan of stashing Odell Beckham, 46% roster. We talked about him last week. He was a top 5 pickup for me then. He remains a top 5 pickup for me now, specifically for fantasy playoff bound teams. If you have to win now and you don't have the bench space, I get it. You can fast forward this one, hit the timestamps, and move on. But man, he could be a monster down the stretch, depending where he lands. Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs, Giants, and 49ers are the rumored teams he has whittled his list down to. According to Adam Schefter, he's hoping to sign by the end of the month, by Thanksgiving time. So a week or two, we'll probably know where he's playing. He's working out right now to get into game shape so he can hit the ground running wherever he plays. But Jay Glazer reporting, if he signs with a team, he's going to be cleared. He's fully healthy at this point, just trying to get, again, into that game shape. You love it. I mean, you don't need me to wax poetic on how talented this guy is. Yeah, a touchdown in all but one game with the Rams once he got traded there. I was a top 24 receiver throughout that stretch run. Could easily just slide right into your wide receiver 3 for your fantasy playoffs if you are in that position to add a guy that you can be patient with. I definitely like stashing Odell Beckham. Wanted to give you guys a reminder about Gus Edwards, my number 6 pickup of the week. Got cut in a lot of leagues over his bye week. And I was shocked. He's 50% rostered, but a lot of my competitive leagues, I saw Gus Edwards out there. So go and do a quick scan. If you need a running back, we're talking about one of the best run schemes in the NFL. Yes, Kenyon Drake, damn impressive these last couple of weeks, over 20 fantasy points his last time out there. I do think he'll remain the lead guy, but Gus Edwards had been that guy. 16 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns in his first game with the team. Was a monster. And then the next week was the clear lead back at 11 carries through 3 quarters for 65 yards as well. Did end up going down and missed the last week that had the bye, but expected to be fully healthy coming out of it. He was around 50% carry share guy in both of his efforts. I really like Gus Edwards. Yes, again, if I had the option, it'd be Kenyon Drake, just given how good he's looked. I don't think he's just going to hand the backfield roll over, but we know Harbaugh loves Gus Edwards, certainly as a goal line hammer too. Plenty of upside there, especially with a soft schedule coming up. I like Gus Edwards. Check your waiver wire to see if he is lingering. Now, a guy we have been talking about, similar to Rachaad White, could easily see him at the number 1 spot at the end of this week, is Jaylen Warren. And it could be as early as this week that he takes over as the starter, given that Najee Harris is dealing with knee discomfort. Harris coming off his best day of the year, but that didn't stop Jaylen Warren from having yet another impressive outing. He has 9+ points in back-to-back weeks, 40% or more of the snaps in back-to-back weeks. He is the clear-cut third down back here, seeing more targets than Najee Harris on equal routes the past 2 weeks as well. And as always, looking more explosive. We did see a couple nice Najee runs this week, but he got dinged up. And Jaylen Warren, if Najee misses time, I think would be a 20+. We've seen what Tomlin likes to do. I know he's moved it to more of a committee because he had no choice given how shitty Najee has looked. But typically, we're seeing Najee, the Tomlin bell cow, averages nearly 26 opportunities. If you look at Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, Najee last year, this is what Tomlin likes to do. So if Najee does end up missing time with this knee discomfort or gets banged up down the stretch run here, Warren would probably be a 20+ touch running back. And the Steelers have a top 5 schedule, both rest of season and in the fantasy playoffs for running backs. So you got a guy that could be a win now option in Jaylen Warren. You got a guy that could be a stretch run hero in Jaylen Warren. I am a huge fan of this player. I think he's looked great every single time he's played. Again, 37 yards on the ground, 40 through the air, just always showing juice every time that ball gets into his hands. So I'm a big fan as his role continues to get elevated, whether or not he takes over just on talent alone, or if this injury continues to linger for Najee, we could see a big stretch run for Jaylen Warren. Another guy that is frequently on these top 10s, but they continue to be under 50% rostered is Donovan Peoples-Jones. How many big games is this guy going to have until you guys take him seriously? Coming off a 99-yard effort, his best of the year so far, but that's just par for the course with this guy. 5 of his last 6, he's had 70-plus yards. He's had more than 11 fantasy points in 5 of his last 6. He has not been below 9 fantasy points in that entire stretch. We're talking about a nice floor, a solid ceiling, because remember, this was a guy that had multiple 30-plus point days in back-to-back seasons. We haven't even seen that ceiling yet because he's not being used on those crazy – he is running those wind sprints, but he doesn't have a quarterback pushing it down the field quite yet to him. But still, that nice established floor, that's even more impressive, in my opinion, than those 1 to 2 random 30-point blowups. And then that ceiling could definitely be tapped into for Donovan Peoples-Jones when we've got Deshaun Watson just a week or 2 away at this point. Week 13 will be making his return. Top 5 graded deep passer in every single season by PFF that Deshaun Watson has played. I am stoked to see what this guy does down the stretch run. And remember, he is actually better on the road than he is at home. We've seen Amari Cooper just completely fade out when he's on the road. So during the fantasy playoffs, when they got those road matchups, the easiest schedule for receivers down the stretch run here for Donovan Peoples-Jones in that fantasy playoffs, weeks 15 through 17, he could go absolutely berserk there. I am a huge fan of adding him. I can't believe he's still out there. Both him and Warren, 20% or so FAAB guys. And you're going to see me start to get a little more aggressive in my FAAB strategy, my FAAB bidding, because at the end of the day, we've only got 4 more weeks of the playoffs, 7 more weeks or so in your fantasy season at this point. You can't take the money with you. So definitely starting to bump these up. But also in general, this week, I just feel like there's tons of guys worth 20% or more of your FAAB for the first time in a long time. Again, one of the most impressive waiver wires we've seen in a while. I would be trying to make sure you get in on these top 10 guys. And if I like Donovan Peoples-Jones, I certainly like the guy who could be throwing to him, and that's Deshaun Watson. We do want to preface this one in terms of, 1, fantasy karma. Could it impact you? Sure, maybe it does. But 2, if you don't really care about that, you got a guy over his career. He's finished 6th, 2nd, 5th, and 1st in fantasy points per game across his 4 career seasons. He has been above 20 points per game in every single one of those efforts. Last time out, this guy led the league, Deshaun Watson, in passing. Now, granted, he didn't look great in the preseason. It's been over a year and a half since we've seen this man throw a football in an actual NFL game. Who knows what's going to happen here? But ultimately, preseason, 53% completion rate, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 6.6 yards per attempt, not the deep gunslinger that we're used to in this Stefanski scheme. Is that going to cap his ceiling the rest of the year? It could, sure. But I also don't hate betting on, again, 1, free. What's the risk here? A bench spot, sure, a little opportunity cost there, but still, out there in a ton of leagues, you could be getting yourself a guy who's finished no worse than QB6 in point per game. Who knows? The receiver core has been solid all year. This offense has plenty of 30-point days on their resume so far this year, and they don't even have their main guy, this franchise quarterback. So I really like Deshaun Watson for your stretch runs. If you're quarterback needy right now, yes, you're going to have a bridge for the next couple weeks, but he could be a QB1 for the stretch. So a guy that, let's go get ahead, go get him now if you need that quarterback. So we wrap up our top 10 here. Wolfpack, we got over 30 for you here. We'd be so appreciative if you like these pickups, you like what you're hearing, you appreciate the show. Please do show that with that thumbs up button. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Joining the channel would be so awesome to have you be part of the Wolfpack, especially as we go live after this, 8 p.m., doing a trade show. We got your trade deadlines coming up. Me and my man Jackson, the king of the trade value chart, will be live at 8 p.m. looking at the best buy lows, sell highs, and playoff fantasy schedules, diving in on that. So don't miss that at 8 p.m. will be a great show. And, of course, going to answer all those waiver wire questions momentarily. But let's get into my number 10 pickup, and I'm cheating a little bit. It's a tie because I don't know which one of these guys I prefer, but I know I like them both. I do prefer Slayton at 7% rostered for just this week at least, because he's facing the Detroit Lions. So if you need a wide receiver 3 pickup, Go and check this guy out. 95 yards and a touchdown, 4 targets, 3 catches, not insane volume, and there's never going to be insane volume. I mean, Saquon Barkley, 35 attempts last week. If this offense can run through the back, they will 100% do so. And with a defense that's really impressive right now, they're going to do that more often than not. But when you got to match up with the Lions, you cannot ignore it. And Slayton has been damn solid. He didn't enter the lineup really until week 5. And since then, he's had 4 of his 5 efforts very useful. 10.9 half PPR, 2.3 dud, 13.3, 9.1, and then 17 points. His best game of the season this last weekend with his top matchup coming up, a top 3 matchup with these Lions. I like Darius Slayton to continue to operate as the de facto number 1 here. If you were holding like Wan'Dale Robinson, it's Darius Slayton at this point. That's the Giants receiver you want. And it was nice to see, too, with Kenny Golladay making his triumphant return. 1 drop. What a great return for Kenny Golladay. I know a lot of people were worried maybe that's going to impact Darius Slayton. Nah, Slayton looked great. He is definitely the number 1 weapon here in the passing game, other than, of course, Saquon Barkley. We know how dangerous he is, but number 1 receiver for this team. I like him to continue these solid efforts. But Paris Campbell, if you're looking for more of a rest of season guy, I really like this one too. 19% rostered. Matt Ryan inserted immediately as the starter by Jeff Saturday. Humongous in all facets. Like Alec Pierce gets a boost up, even though he did nothing this last week. The entire passing game gets a nice uptick, but especially Paris Campbell. Coming off a solid game, 7 catches, 9 targets, 76 yards, and a score. 17 fantasy points, not bad. But you look at his last 3 efforts with Matt Ryan. That one, 17.1, solid. He had 12 targets and 11 targets in the 2 starts by Matt Ryan before that for 18 and 15.2 fantasy points. He scored a touchdown in all 3 of Matt Ryan's last starts. 757 and a touchdown, 1070 and a score. The week before that, that's like low-end wide receiver 1 numbers. Now, I'm not saying that Paris Campbell's going to do that each and every week, but it's clear him and Matt Ryan, they've formed a nice bomb out of these last couple of weeks as that slot receiver, Paris Campbell, has definitely hit those kind of layup targets. An Amon-Ra St. Brown light type of usage here for Paris Campbell. Could definitely see a nice stretch run, assuming Matt Ryan stays entrenched as the starter. And why would they go away from it? He got the win in his first start. Those 2 have had a great rapport, especially over those last 3 weeks. I expect it to continue, and he is definitely, Paris Campbell, a very viable wide receiver 3 moving forward, available in nearly over 80% of leagues. Go get him if you can. A couple quick honorable mentions for you. I didn't mention any tight ends, and I know a lot of you might be scrambling for him this week with Zach Ertz now laid up for the year, Gerald Everett potentially missing time. We definitely want to look and give you a few guys you could look for here. Foster Moreau, 17% rostered, probably be my top option. He had a solid effort. His first touchdown of the year, 43 yards, 4 targets, 3 catches, was a top 7 tight end this week based on those numbers. Not bad. Looked pretty good. He's always been a plus athlete. He's always had a decent enough rapport with Derek Carr for however long he has to fill in for Darren Waller, and it's looking like that with the IR, you got at least a couple more starts, including a matchup versus the Seahawks. Not this week. Get Denver, tougher matchup, but not impossible. Then you got the Seahawks, the absolute cakewalk dream matchup for tight ends in 2 weeks. So keep him on your radar. I also like looking at tight end to the direct backup for Zach Ertz. That's Trey McBride, the number 1 tight end prospect coming into this year. Played 54 of 55 offensive snaps across the last 3 quarters once Zach Ertz was out. Didn't do much. 1 catch, 7 yards, but great athlete. Again, one of the top dynasty prospects at the tight end position. This could be where he starts to get his career up and rolling. Definitely a gamble. Nothing insane here, or guaranteed, but we've seen how steady Zach Ertz has been. But a tight end 1 in all but 1 game. And I know that's Ertz, reliable veteran. That's what we're become accustomed to. Who knows if a rookie will play quite to that level, but certainly a better athlete at this stage of his career is Trey McBride. So if he can kind of command a similar type of target share, man, it could be crazy. I do expect it to be more so Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins. We saw 16 targets for Hopkins and 13 for Moore. That's what I expect moving forward. But even 7 to 8 on a team running the most plays in the NFL right now, especially most pass plays too, could see Trey McBride carving out a role. And if you miss out on Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, Christian Watson, all those preferred wide receiver options, I do want to shout out Nico Collins getting 10 targets, hauls in 5 for 49 and a score. He's got a cakewalk schedule, especially in his next 3. Washington, Miami, Cleveland, all bottom 7 against wide receivers, and tons of green in the fantasy playoffs too in terms of matchups. So Nico Collins looks like he has taken over potentially the wide receiver 1 role. The team is fed up, according to the inside sources, with Brandon Cooks. They're kind of freezing this guy out at this point. And so don't be shocked if they want to give Nico Collins a test drive as the wide receiver 1 through this stretch run with a nice schedule. Could be a viable play. Now we got about 22 questions in the mailbag, questions at least. Nice, not bad. We've had like 100 question nights on these Tuesdays. So get those questions on in, Wolfpack. We so appreciate it. Get those thumbs up in, Wolfpack. So greatly appreciate it again. And I know a lot of you guys do like to tune in for your defensive streamers. So let's dive into my favorite Week 11 defensive streamers, starting with Pittsburgh. 19% rostered. Went to them last week. They got me 10 points. Did not disappoint. Big fan of going back to the well here because they get another home matchup. They look damn good after returning TJ Watt, and they're facing the team they faced in Week 1, Cincinnati, when they had over 25 fantasy points, depending on your scoring settings. Love to see it. Now, Watt didn't have a sack, but he could just tell how different this defense operates. And quote their cornerback, quoting Wallace, says, each and every play I look up, he's doing something. He's affecting every play, disrupting so much. You can feel his presence when he's out on the field. You absolutely could feel that if you just watch the game, how good this defense did, allowing just 10 points, less than 200 yards of total offense against the Saints. A great fantasy effort. And they didn't even have Mika Fitzpatrick, who is expected to return from his appendix surgery this past week. So I really like them. Yes, the Bengals, a much better offense than the Saints, but again, giving up the second most sacks in the league, top 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed on the season. It's not impossible, and they've definitely looked far less explosive without Jamar Chase, who is still looking a little gimpy these days. So I don't think he plays this week. I think it's a solid matchup for your Steelers. If you went to him last week, I wouldn't be cutting and hunting around. I'd continue to ride it out, and they're still out there. If you missed the well last week, I think another 10-plus point effort is well within reach. But I also love the New York Jets. I think a genuine top 5 real-life defensive unit right now. We saw them hold the Bills to 17 points, turn over Josh Allen twice, including 5 sacks against one of the top offenses in the entire NFL. That was an incredible game by this defensive effort. They're 6-3, and the huge part of it is this incredible defense. Sauce Gardner might be the best quarterback in the NFL right from the start, and they're getting if they could do that to the Bills, they could just go right in and smash the Patriots, who they had a great time against last time this team's matchup, 21% rostered. So not a lot of people giving them the respect a lot of those top defensive units get. They had 6 sacks against New England last time out in Week 8. They had not given up 20 points in 6 straight games, only once rather. So five games, 20 or fewer points. This is a great defense. Again, I just want to keep emphasizing it. Yeah, they're on the road, but number 10 fantasy defense since Week 4, and just real life wise, so damn talented. Easy matchup against New England. Don't overthink this one. Speaking of that Bengals-Steelers matchup, I think the Bengals are very viable, even on the road. They've been a solid defense. Now, not a ton of sacks, only 14 towards the bottom of the league there, but they're top 10 in so many other metrics, including yards allowed, 324, 12th in points allowed, 20.6. They're favorites on the road against a defense giving up, or a offense rather, Steelers, giving up the 3rd most points to defenses. We know Kenny Pickett just loves to get picked. So ultimately, I do think this defense, fairly opportunistic, despite the lack of sacks here, could be a solid offense. They've 10th in total defense so far on the year, and ultimately solid. Pittsburgh, again, 27 sacks. It's no joke here what they've surrendered on the season. So yes, they've been a light sacked unit here with the Bengals, but this could be the matchup. They get it done. And the last one, if all 3 of those ones are gone, this is a scary one. You got to swallow a little puke back, but the Commanders, 5% rostered. Why would we ever consider these guys? Well, we just saw them stifle the Eagles defense, the Eagles offense, the undefeated Eagles on Monday Night Football, looking really solid. And actually, since Taylor Heineke took over, this team is rallying as a whole, including a defensive unit. They have kept all their opponents since Week 5 at 21 or fewer points. They've had 2 5-sack games in their last 4, and now they're getting Chase Young back. So could be an even better unit this next couple of weeks. They also get stud middle linebacker Cole Holcomb coming back. Houston too. So They're already playing well. The fact that, again, they could shut down the Eagles as well as they did going to the Texans. Talk about a cakewalk afterwards. Great spot for this defense. Texans are averaging 16.6 per game, bottom 3 in the NFL, allowing nearly 3 sacks per game, also bottom in the NFL in that spot. So I am, again, after this fired up offense, this defensive effort rather, against the Eagles, I think they could continue to roll here Sunday. So those are my 4 ones. I would rank them, again, in the order I present them, but Jets versus Steelers, very close. Those are my top 2. Bengals mixed right into there as well. And then Commanders, my 4th option, but pretty sneaky, sexy 4th option here. And these defensive streamers have been crushing it so far this year, so I hope they crush it for you yet again in Week 11. All righty, Wolfpack. That wraps up all of my top waiver wire pickups of the week. So it is now time to hit. There we go. Questions getting up here. Love to see it. Let's dive into the mailbag as we do, Wolfpack. Over 40 here, over 40 questions. You love to see it. Let's get that thumbs up button for us, Wolfpack. Would be so greatly appreciated. I'm going to now toss in with the mailbag open the link for anybody that wants to call in live. I know my man David Campanelli is probably chopping at the bit. My bad on the delay there for you, David. Sending that out now for anybody that does want to call in live, chat with me. You always get the preference, but let's get to these mailbags. Thanks again, Wolfpack. And if you're new here, I see some new names. Love it. Great stuff. Do please consider subscribing to the show. And one last time, I want to pump it up. Going to be live at 8 p.m. My man Jackson, the king of the trade value chart. We're going to be live talking trades, who to target as you head to your fantasy playoffs, baby. It's 7 p.m. Do you know what time it is? It's time for the Wolf to lead us to full fantasy domination. Thank you, David. Such a good fan. You're the absolute man every single time. Can I trust D Swift this week yet? It depends what your other options are because he's so damn talented. He kind of saved his day with that touchdown late. But the fact that they're getting Justin Jackson an equal amount of snaps and carries, I don't want to trust D Swift if I don't have to. It is just a nightmare situation. I don't understand it. The guy is so explosive every time you see him touch the rock. You do see a few plays, though, like on a screen where he's got blockers, he's got space, and he just kind of gets too cute with it. And Dan Campbell, not a guy that likes too cute. So I'm worried about it. I am. So talented at any given week, could go off for 25 and even on minimal touches. So he's certainly an option you could use, but I would want to know who you haven't said. Justin Herbert or Deshaun Watson rest of the season. Who would have thought we'd ever be asking that one? But Herbert, what a disappointment this year. The locked-in consensus QB2. Just sickening season so far. And yeah, injuries and all that, but he just hasn't stepped up to the plate much, so it seems. So hard to say because, like, who knows what Watson's going to do, but honestly, like, it can't be that much worse than what we're seeing out of Herbert, right? So I kind of want to say if it's one or the other, I almost want to just go with the unknown here with Watson because we know what Herbert's been doing, and it hasn't been great. That being said, though, love Herbert's matchup against the Chiefs coming up this week. Very, very viable in my opinion. My man, Chris, 9-1. You'll love to see it. You're crushing it this year. Great stuff, baby. Feeling great, too. Second place in my main league right now. Looking at a playoff berth in all but one. Good stuff. Good season so far. I'm glad you're crushing it as well, brother. Let go, Daniel. Let's go indeed. Love it. What's going on, Chip? Love you. Thank you, baby. I wore it just for you. Pacheco or Kyren Williams? I'll get rid of Kyren. I mean, he looked good on his catches this week. Definitely going to have a role. Played more snaps than Cam Akers. Okay, nice. What's this offense going to look like? No Cooper Kupp yet, so maybe that does open up some targets. Yeah, that could be a good argument there. I think the Rams might just flat out suck the rest of the year. I think they're going to shut down Cooper Kupp. We got at least 4 weeks without him. They're probably going to lose all those games, and at that point, why even bring him back? So I think this team's going to be hideous. The backfield's already been disgusting. I think the only upside with Kyren is like, let's see what we got in the rookie. Let's make him our 3-down back. He's got the 3-down skill set. It could happen. All that to say is give me the guy in the Chiefs' very functional offense, one of the best offenses we got in the league, over Kyren Williams to me. So, yeah, I'm definitely going Pacheco there. Chiefs offense. My man, David, Taco Tuesday is now turned into tremendous transactional Tuesday. Hell yeah, it sure has, baby. Hopefully you're eating tacos while doing transactions. Maybe that's what I do next show is I just shove 8 tacos down my face, spit some ground beef at the screen while we talk through these pickups. I love Taco Tuesday. Daniel Duong, Tony, hell yeah, baby. Love this guy indeed. Lost a tough one this week. Dude, Apex, you're telling me I had a 3-point lead, 4-point lead with A.J. Brown versus Goddard, and I lost. That one was a real kick to the balls. Did not feel good. Come on, A.J. But a goodbye low. And we'll talk about him later tonight. Dear God, please help me. George Cook, I hope I can. What do we got for you? Have Burrow and Fields. Dear God, please help me. I love it. Have Burrow and Fields in a single. I mean, love it. Do I trade Fields, A.J. Brown, and Dameon Pierce for CMC and CeeDee Lamb? I don't think I do that. Like a week ago, I would have been like, yeah, hammer that. But 18 carries go to Eli Mitchell. Yeah, I love CMC. Think he's still an elite talent. Still put him in my top 8 or so rest of season. But we're talking about A.J. Brown. Yeah, dud week. But you're giving up maybe the cheat code of the year in Fields. You know how it happens every year. Someone comes in and just like goes absolutely bananas. We're seeing that happen with 42 and 37 points in back-to-back weeks for Fields. Have the matchups been glorious? Of course they have. But this is different. I mean, when this guy's running for 160-plus yards a week, how can we get rid of that? So I don't do that, especially with Pierce. Like, I'm not worried about Eno Benjamin going there. So if I felt better about CMC, I'd say, yeah, probably. But like A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, a wash to me. I probably even prefer Brown. Pierce for CMC, like, yeah, I prefer CMC, but not that big of a gap. So then to give up maybe the cheat code of the year, if you could swap Burrow into that, maybe. But even then, it's like, I don't know. I don't think you're getting enough. I don't. If you have those players, I mean, dear God, please help you. Are you that down bad, George? I mean, that's a pretty good core you got. Ryan Taka. As a fellow Justin Herbert owner and D. Watson owner, I hope Watson balls out. Yeah, I'm there. I have Fields and Watson. My plan was like Fields is going to be my bridge, and then I ride Watson out. I'm not going to cut Watson at this point because I do have Fields as buy, but I mean, obviously I am just all in on Fields the rest of the year. But Watson sure could ball out. Foster Moreau or Juwan Johnson, non-PPR. Juwan's got a touchdown, 4 of his last 5? That's not bad. If it's non-PPR, I feel like you chase the TDs there, I mean, especially in a standard league. Like maybe Juwan. He's got some nice schedule too. Week 11, this is a really impressive. Yeah, I'm with you. These are the weeks the Wolves get fed. It sure is, David. These are the weeks we are going to be eating. Definitely one. Like I might leave all the FAAB on the table this week. This is the type of week for it. Do you think I should try trading Mixon and A.J. Brown for Jay Jett and Ramondre? I'm tempted. Yeah, I would do that deal. Yeah. I mean, the one risk with Ramondre is out of the bye. Like, do they go to Damian Harris more and just kind of back to that gross backfield? But, I mean, you see what Jefferson does. That is just unstoppable. That one-handed catch, like, I know we're not talking about, like, just fantasy points. We don't get bonus points for those, but that man is unstoppable. So I think at Apex, I probably do this. I don't know. It's a huge win, though, so it's not like a must-do either. I really don't like doing a trade unless I feel like I'm very much coming on top. I'm going to actually hold on most of the trade questions coming in just because we're going to have that trade show coming up at 8 p.m. So I want to kind of save some of that for my man Jackson too, get his insight on the trades, give you a few trade targets, buy lows and sell highs. Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson, half PPR. Just talking about that one, Giuseppe, but now it's half PPR. It does change it because Moreau does get a little bit more volume. I think I'm leaning Moreau there in a half PPR. Lost Goddard. Yeah, so, I was saying lost Ertz. Goddard, even worse now at this point. So I like both those guys. I prefer Moreau. And don't sleep on McBride as a potential option there too. And yeah, I'm with you, Bubba Fett. I agree George Cook could get more. I'm not a Cook owner, but I have Madison. Would you hold or pick up best available running back? Probably McKinnon or Slayton. I'd probably still hold on Madison there. Remember, was a top 5 running back in 2 of his – he had 4 starts last year. It was a top 7 running back in 3 of his 4. I still think that's well worth the hold in case anything happens to Cook down the stretch run here. I'd rather have him than McKinnon or Slayton unless you just need one of those 2 to start. Is he cuttable? Yeah, but the upside is still so real with Madison. Aaron Cooley. Have Lamar and Fields need to improve receiver and running back. Which one do I trade? Let's talk about that on the trade value show. My gut says you could probably get more for Fields, given how hot he's been right now, I'd say whichever one you can get more for. I like them both pretty damn equally rest of the season. If I had to pick one to keep, I honestly would rather have Fields on my team rest of the season, but I'm open to trading whichever one I can get a better haul for. 9-1, my man Charlie, a true wolf, a day one wolf. Love to see you thriving like this. AJ Dillon droppable for either of Pacheco or DPJ. You need stretch run upside for Charlie. Yes and no. Do you need to use either DPJ or Pacheco? Because if not, they're just bench plays. Obviously, AJ Dillon, if something happens to Aaron Jones, no higher upside scenario than that. But if you think you might need to use either of these guys, yeah, I mean, definitely DPJ in terms of like wide receiver 3 already. 11 plus points in 5 of his last 6, like very, very usable. So there's that. But if it's strictly like a bench player and you're not going to use these guys, then AJ Dillon certainly has the highest ceiling of anybody here. But I am not opposed to cutting AJ Dillon, in particular if I need somebody I can use. So I don't know if that's a non-answer. I hope that helps, Charlie. Sorry in that sense. But I'd probably keep Dillon unless you, again, need to start one of these guys. There he is, my man Campanelli. I was wondering when you'd get here for the call.
Sorry, Wolf. The word call in, so the call was underlined. So for some reason, my computer, long story. Anyway, got Gino on bye this week. I need a plug and play. I've been riding Stafford on the bench, but without Cup, I just kind of want to cut bait. So I could drop Stafford and run out Dalton, Goff, or Goff.
Dalton, Goff, or Goff? I'll go with the second. Yeah. Who's the other one? Goff or
Dalton? I have Dalton and Goff that I could run out there.
Okay, one or the other.
And I already have a claim in for Watson. So once Watson can come back in, I kind of just think he's the plug and play at that point. Yeah,
I think so too. Or you just keep riding it out with Gino too as well. Is that the 2 QB of the Superflex league or
no? This is like a full PPR league.
And this might make you puke. And I don't know if this guy's even out here, but is Russell Wilson out there? No, I never want to go to him, but he does get the Raiders, who are giving up the most points by a country mile this year. 2 quarterbacks.
So the other, I mean, I could go Brissett, Matt Ryan.
Yeah, so Russ is not out there. Okay.
Yeah, no, Russ is not available.
So actually, it's not Andy Dalton. I think Jameis Winston's taken over. And if that's the case, you know me. I love me a little bit of Jameis here. He was 7th in passing yards through the first 3 weeks. Like, he did have 5 interceptions, which was gross, but was average depth of target 12. The guy was slinging it, Jameis Winston. Who do the Saints have coming up this week?
Let's see. The Saints have, I believe, the Rams.
Not a bad I mean, that's not a bad matchup at all. They're giving up a good amount to wide receivers too. I think I like Jameis the most. I mean, Goff isn't bad, but he's been so up or down, and it's pretty obvious like when it's going to be an up versus a down. And the Giants is not a great matchup. Like, they're a good defense overall. They're slow. They bleed the clock. I kind of feel like Jameis is the gunslinger, and his schedule down the stretch is kind of soft too. So if he like walks in and just hucks 303, awesome. And if he sucks, you can cut him anyways for, as you mentioned, like Watson, you'll have Geno Smith returning, will be fine. But I feel like I'm going to give the nod to Jameis, and just hope he slings.
Okay. Nope, not a problem. Thanks, Wolf. I dropped that in the comments already, so you could just ignore that one.
Awesome. I will. So obviously we need to have Jameis confirmed as a starter too. So that's probably a situation you got to cut your kicker or, play. So if you don't want to be that impatient, Goff would be the next man up. Okay. But yeah, I like Jameis Winston here. So
no, not a problem. Wolf. Thank you. And, let's ride out through the transactions.
There we go, baby. Yeah, we'll see you for the trade show, I hope, too. It's a busy night here, but we got a good one coming up for who to buy and sell. So cheers, man. Good to see you as always, David. All righty. What else do we left off with? I think this is the question you were alluding to. No, it's a different question for you. But I missed a couple. So let me go back to here. It was Charlie that we left off with. And I'm going live in 5 minutes with Jackson. So you know what? I'm going to rapid fire through these. But guys, I promise if I missed anything here, I'll stay through whatever questions we get after our trade show. So whether it's waiver wire, trade specific, going live in 5 minutes with my man Jackson. So let me hit you with a couple quick ones here and then bring these questions to the next show. I apologize to have that little cut in the action, but you can find the next show coming up, the trade value show. I should have just had them go into one another, but I didn't know exactly how to transition that. So let's see here. Slayton over Brandon Cooks. Yes, Chip. Against Detroit, I would do that. Chop Gerald Everett for David Njoku, 100%. I love Njoku down your stretch runs here. David Campanelli. I would drop A.J. Dillon for Rachaad White. Yes. Definitely at this point. I did that in one of my leagues, so I got that. Moreau, McBride, Tunyon. I'm going to go Moreau there here. I love that the chat is helping each other out. You love to see it. Keep Steelers, D, or go Bengals or Commanders. I'm going Steelers there, Giuseppe. They led us to the promised land last week. Like traded Foreman for Cooper. I don't mind that. Really depends on your team needs, but not a bad deal. Saints D, Steelers D. I'm going Steelers D, Giuseppe. They did not disappoint, so keep riding them, right? Lamar and Mooney for – oh, wow. That's a steal. I love that deal, J.D. White. Getting Tyreek Hill, and you have Fields already too. Wow. You're set up, J.D. White, for a stretch run of all stretch runs. Should I trade Foreman, Keenan, Kmet, and Lazard for – so I'm going to take that trade question, bring that to the next show, my man, so I can evaluate that with my man Jackson, trade value chart guru. Trade AJ Brown. So I'm going to skip over trade questions and just try to hit the waiver specific because, again, the trade show is coming up next. I hope you guys do return. I apologize in advance if you don't. And I already answered that one for you, George, I think, earlier. And I would not do that deal. Is it crazy? I like Commanders D. It's not crazy, Daniel, especially with Chase Young coming back. As we mentioned, they've had a couple good weeks in a row. I just prefer the talent there for the other ones. Would you rather get Watson, Tony, or Mooney for wide receiver 2 for Nicola? I kind of like Tony. I just always been a big Tony guy. Watson's damn close there. Colin is now working. Oh, yeah, I didn't make a space there. So that's probably my issue. We'll make sure to have that fixed, David. Thank you for the heads up. I'm going to send all trade questions again coming up to the 8 p.m. show here. Thoughts on continue? I love Schultz. Definitely. With Dak, he's always been a beast, and it's only getting better. Jamar Chase, Barkley, Justin Jefferson. I'm liking the Barkley Chase side there. And then we got the Colin for you. I'm glad you figured that out. I don't know what you're asking here. Pierce or Kirk? Probably Damian Pierce there. Got a few questions. Let me see. So I'm going to pump this again to the trade show. Hopefully you guys can join me there. We got a bunch of trade questions, which I love to see. Come on over to the trade show. We're going to start that in less than 3 minutes. So Wolfpack, thank you again so much on that way out, that thumbs up button, subs with a lot of new names. Sorry again to redirect you to a new show, but we're going to debut this trade value, buy low, sell high, all that stuff. My man Jackson's as sharp as they come. If you listen to his buy lows last week, you got Dalton Schultz, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got James Conner. So, I mean, he did well. Let's get these names coming out for you in just a few minutes. Wolfpack, hopefully to see you at the next show. And a wolf of his sheep, be the wolf, roastedjones.com. Later.